So, there was a project that I was involved in that fell apart, as some projects do, and I had already done the work for it. Quite a bit of work, because a bunch of awesome people wanted to see me involved and work towards that goal. Gratitude is very much my attitude, so this video is mostly for them. Plus, I'm actually really proud of the monster that I made, so here it is. Prompt challenges. A collection of elements fused together by the mind of an artist. A fun way to stretch the old artistic muscles and create something that you might not have made otherwise. I picked a gentle bovine giant. This is the first stage in a two-stage line. Someone else will be designing the second stage, and it's a dual type. The primary type is fire, and the second type, well, I get to pick that myself. The last bit of relevant info is that it has a base stat total of 450. Dang, that is high for a first stage Pokemon, right? Well, it's a giant, so maybe that plays into it. I actually had a little chuckle at the prompt as it has an additional note. Google what bovine are. Yeah, no, I'm fine. Bovines are friends of mine, having grown up in a farm town with a lot of dairy cows. New Zealand might be most known for its ovines, but don't sleep on those larger, even-toed ungulates out in the fields. But which bovine to pick? Cows are the most well-known, but the grouping actually contains some fairly interesting creatures. In the end, I went with the gaur, or Indian buffalo. It is the largest bovine, perfect for the giant portion of this prompt, and it has some really cool notable features. A big, muscular hump on the back like a grizzly bear, a huge dewlap in front, a shorter than average tail, a massive bony bump in between the horns, feet that look like they're wearing socks, and a body that's essentially one big square. It's one of those critters that feels like it actually already is a Pokémon. Design considerations. There are several bovine Pokémon already, and I don't want to just make it a regional variant. In fact, doing so is prohibited by the rules. Canon Pokemon of the bovine variety are all single-stage monsters. Apart from Miltank, they all have pretty natural fur colors and a pretty similar body plan. Miltank's actually the odd one out in a couple of ways, honestly. It's bipedal, it has a cute face instead of a more scowling expression, despite the reputation it has courtesy of Whitney. I think if I had to guess, Terrakion has some gaur influences already, but it is hard to tell. My second challenge is that there are a lot of fire-type bovine Pokemon out there in the Fakemon community, let's just get this out of the way. The Zodiac theory's been pretty thoroughly debunked by now, courtesy of my boy Fuecoco, but that doesn't mean that it didn't have plenty of influence over Fakemon designers who wanted to keep things feeling official by sticking to what they thought was the canon standard. And there's no shade being thrown here. My own regional starter is a sheep for this exact reason. But there are a good number of burning bulls in the wonderful world of Fakemon, and I don't want to tread on any toes by designing something that's super similar to someone else's stuff. I promise you, I did not just copy your homework and change it a bit so that teacher can't tell. I think the key thing here is just making sure that it doesn't look starter-ish. That can be pretty well achieved by monitoring proportions and personality. We want a bigger body-to-head ratio especially. And now onto the design. Here we have a gentle bovine giant, dual type with fire as the primary, first stage in a two-part line with a base stat total of 450. I tried a few different body shapes before settling on the one I liked best. The additional type I picked is Psychic. The thing that pushed me down that path is pretty simple. Gaur have huge mounds on top of their heads. These are plates made of bone and keratin, but I was immediately spurred on to think of like a big brain. Then that sort of morphed into a crystal ball, symbolizing that third eye that's so often referenced when talking about ESP and psychic powers. The horns curve upward and make a shape that's something like a lower eyelid as well. Talking the design over with an amazing friend of mine in real life, he pointed out that the thing he finds to be cutest about cows is their big fat noses and nostrils. I had to wholeheartedly agree, so I made those old nose holes pretty big. But being this is a fire type, they have to be where the fire attacks come from, right? Like forward-facing vents to shoot out flamethrowers and embers and stuff. Added a little blep tongue. Body? Big and mostly squared off except for a muscular hump on top. Cute little legs that look like they're wearing socks? Absolutely. I rounded off the foot atop the hoof to look a little bit like bunched fabric. I feel like this adds to the youthful feel of the design. That big dewlap in front is now an orb that generates flame. Like the flame sacks that the Pokedex references a lot, but more external. I thought this was a good matching piece for the crystal ball on top. Two orbs, one cool blue and one fiery orange. I went with a magenta-hued pink for the main body of this critter, as it's a color that works really nicely with both blue and orange. Weirdly enough, Psychic-type Pokemon don't really have much color continuity between them. I mean, some other types do. Grass types tend to skew green, dark types black, or very, very dark blue. Fairy types? Light pinks and whites. Psychic? Man, you've got colors ranging from minty green to banoffee pie yellow and brown to pink to white to black and blue. It's a cornucopia of shades. Still, I think that pink that's dark and cool enough not to immediately make you think of fairy type works pretty well. After chatting the design over with some awesome artists, I made a few additional changes. I added some tufts of hair to the head and chest at the suggestion of Angel over at Odd and Draw. I changed the positioning of the hindfoot, and I did try incorporating one suggestion to have some swirly energy or fire in the orbs, but, and I believe this is purely a skill issue on my part, couldn't get it looking really nice without it being too busy. Thanks again to the folks who gave me constructive criticism. I really appreciate it. And here we have Warumoo, the calf Pokemon. Warumoo are friendly, curious Pokemon who are reluctant when it comes to confrontation. They are nocturnal and use the light from their flames to see what is ahead of them in the dense forests they call home. Because they're quite large though, the noise they make moving through dense underbrush is quite loud and easy for predators to hear. It's lucky then that the orb on their head is a powerful psychic type organ that allows them limited precognition, making escape quite a bit easier. Because they're reluctant to cause harm, these can be challenging Pokemon for inexperienced trainers. When well treated though, Warumoo are exceptionally loving and affectionate. So your stat spread is mostly defensive, but in terms of which attacks would suit this Pokemon the best, it would be slightly skewed in favor of the attack stat over the special attack. I think a combination of moves like Flame Charge, Zen Headbutt, and Flare Blitz would work in Warmoo's favor. Probably paired up with a bunch of buff type moves. Reflect, Barrier, Work Up, or Bulk Up, that kind of thing. For abilities, you have Run Away. This allows Warumoo to yeet itself out of battle on a whim. It does tend to run from confrontation after all. Anticipation allows this Pokemon to know when a foe has a super effective move available, putting that limited precognition to use. For the hidden ability, we have Serene Grace. This increases the likelihood of secondary effects from moves coming into play. As a fire type, this means additional possibility of burns for the most part, but some psychic type moves do things like lower special attack or confuse foes. The name? Warm and Moo. I spelled Moo with a U to soften it a little bit more, and Warm because, well, a lot of fire-type Pokemon have names that concentrate on the destructive properties of fire.
Combustion, Inferno, Incinerate, Torch, Charge, Eruption.
But fire can be gentle, warming, calming, and cozy. I wanted to reflect that. Okay, my wishes for this evolution. So, assuming I summoned Shenron and can make a couple requests, these would be my hopes. I hope the evolution remains a quadruped. I hope it retains its gentleness and warmth at least somewhat. But I hope it does find a little more courage to fight for the people and Pokemon it wants to protect. Having said that, I know that whatever you decide to do, it's gonna be awesome, and I can't wait to see it. And there we have it. I hope you guys like Warumoo. I'm looking forward to catching you in the next one, trainers. But till then, take care of yourselves. Bye!